Hello and welcome back. This is Story Impact. I'm your host, Lisa Tolles. I started the Story Impact series because everyone loves a good story. So this series is about authors and their books, their craft and process, what they can teach us, and what they've learned along the way. As well as being your host for the series, I'm also a crime novelist, and you can find my books on Amazon and on lisatolles.com. All right, so today I want to tell you about my good friend Brian Skillen. He's a best-selling author, marketer, coach, teacher, and speaker. And really, to me, he's one of the most insightful and successful visionaries I've worked with. Brian believes we are all called to adventure and we're born to explore. In his adventures around the world, nothing has affected him more than his pilgrimages along the Camino de Santiago. And it was here that he was first told about a secret code of the Knights Templar on the Camino. I want to talk about that today. This code inspired him to write his series Through a Field of Stars. And since his first pilgrimage in 2017, he's walked over 1,000 miles across Spain doing research for this series. Brian, warmest welcome.
Thank you very much. It's great to be here today. Thanks for having me on your show.
Yeah, and this is your second time on this series. I think I interviewed you about a year and a half ago, and I mean, like so much has changed in that time. So
So much.
let's just dive in. So, for a viewer of this series and for someone who doesn't yet know you, that's really a lot of juicy detail to take in. I mean, some extraordinary lived experience and also a lot of hats that you wear. So, what does a typical day for you look like right now?
Yeah, absolutely. So, typical day for me is well, first off, thank you for having me on your show. It's so great to be here with you today.
Of course.
Um, Typical day for me looks like waking up about like 5:30 a.m., doing a little morning routine. So, doing a little workout, meditation, visualization, and then reading, because I think it's really important that as an author, you continue to feed yourself what you love. Like we all love books, right?
Mhm.
And so, it's important to keep the input going. So I take some time to sit and read and focus. And then after that, I start writing actually. And I write for, usually when I'm working on the novel, it's about 2,000 words a day, no matter what. It's a little different now. I'm working on a nonfiction novel, so it's a guidebook to the Templars on the Camino. And
Mm.
so that's a little different because I have to do all this like heavy research
Mhm.
and put in pictures and all this other stuff. So it's more
Mhm.
about like a certain amount of time. And then as you know, we run an organization called Publishing Hackers, which is all about educating and empowering authors. And so, then we start working with our clients and help other people publish their books and market their books and do a whole bunch of different things with their books. But I make sure I carve out that time in the morning
Mm.
to just to read, focus, and then work on my novels when I'm going through there.
What are you reading right now? Do you read fiction or nonfiction? Do you read more than one book at a time?
Yeah, I have like five different books going on. So I have, I have like two on audio, which are fiction. So I'm diving deep into like YA fantasy because my next book is YA fantasy. So
Mhm.
I'm reading all the greats in YA fantasy and all the greats in fantasy books again, just to kind of see what their styles. So I do a lot of that via Audible
Mhm.
when I'm going through. Then I'm reading another fantasy book by Michael J. Sullivan, he's a multi-New York Times bestselling author and he, at one point in time, was the number one self-published author, fantasy author in the world. And he would do Kickstarter book launches. And he was actually one of our mentors when we started publishing. So him and his wife were very helpful to us when we
Mm.
first, because we also do Kickstarter book launches and we became friends. And the system that we use for publishing and to help other people is based off the system that they shared with us. And then I'm reading a nonfiction book right now from one of my future clients coming out. It's called Pastoring the Flock of God, which is a book that's gone out to over 70,000 pastors around the world.
Mm.
And it's really been translated into like 24 different languages as a really good book when I'm coming there. It's about leadership
Mm.
in there and then feeling that call to go that direction. So
Mm. So what you said about Michael and you're reading his book, and that was kind of a really successful partnership for you. Those alliances are really interesting how they happen for us as authors, right? You meet someone and you never know what their intention is to push you along on your path or maybe make you diverge paths. And I mean, that's happened so many times, right?
Oh, absolutely. And you know what I find is like everybody's really kind and everybody wants to share because we all start in the same place. At one point in time, we were all just sitting at our computers, banging our heads, thinking, why am I doing this? Like, or my book's never going to be good enough. And so I think we've all been there. And it's just really, there's a lot of generous people who like to give. And that's why we always like to give back. That's why we started our whole thing was just to help other people too. But yeah, exactly. You never know what author is going to change your life and what the next little tidbit's going to be that just kind of like opens everything for you.
I feel that calling too to help people, and I think your perspective is very positive and very uplifting. And honestly, I think as authors, we need that encouragement. I mean, like there's so much to there's so much that counters that, like there's a lot of competition. If you're trying to get an agent, you might not hear back from anyone like for months or ever. And, it's really hard to keep yourself lifted up. And it seems like positivity and faith and vision is like at the bedrock of what you're trying to teach people.
Yeah, absolutely. And also just like supporting each other. Because one thing people don't realize a lot of the time is there's different types of readers, and I'll give you an example of this, right? So I just was selling books at DC Comic Con up there, and I didn't get into the convention, but this guy that had met in Seattle, so I was selling at Seattle Comic Con, and I was outselling everybody there because I have a great sales pitch that just goes into it. And all the authors wanted to come and talk to me and see what my sales pitch was, and he was one of them. And he's a USA Today bestselling author and other things. And but still like he wanted to hear my pitch and how we were doing things. And so of course I shared, I just gave him the exact format that we did and everything. And then lo and behold, like a week later, he was sharing a booth at DC Comic Con and the person canceled. So he invited me to go up with him.
Mm,
And I've never shared a booth with somebody before because, I've always just been by myself. And I was like, are you sure you want me to come with you? I sell very well and whatnot. And he's like, yeah, it doesn't matter because, they're the people who are going to buy like my whole series will also buy your whole series.
mm,
Like there are people who are just addicted to books
mm.
and will buy everything. And it was true. Like we sold and we sold and we sold and we sold. And it was awesome. It was like really cool. But, that was one thing that I think people understand as you go through this more. It's like we're all in this together, especially as indie authors. Like we're all in this together and we all just need to help each other out and just get there. And, you know, like the person who's going to read the fantasy book, guess what? Another thing that came from that too is another fantasy reader asked if I had freebies to go out to a person. And I said, yes. So I'm now getting introduced to her old audience just because I was generous, like with my information that I
Mhm,
shared. So,
mhm.
it's like we're all working together to go towards the common goal.
I love it. I could honestly spend this whole time talking about marketing, but I really want to focus on you and your books. So let's step back from conferences for a minute. And I think your series, The Way Through a Field of Stars, is more than just a book series. I think it's more of a calling. Am I right?
Absolutely, absolutely, 100%. So, like, I wrote the series to inspire a million people to go walk the Camino de Santiago, which is an ancient pilgrimage in Spain, and just have a life-changing experience. It's one of the places that you can really have an adventure today, like a real-life adventure. And I want to be that call to adventure. I want my books to be the call to adventure that every hero listening to this right now gets, and then they go. And we've inspired people to go. Like, I've had people go. And I think you've heard this from me before. Like I didn't intend to be an author. Like I never thought I'd be an author. I grew up with dyslexia and like a third grade reading and spelling level in high school. Like it was hard. But as I was walking the Camino, I got to this place and we got in this conversation and this guy, when we finished up, he said, look for the clues that the left Templars left behind. And all of a sudden I just started seeing this stuff everywhere. And this movie played like a book in my head. And I don't know if that happens for you, but that's the way it is for me. It's like I'm watching a movie and I just start writing stuff down. But with
Mhm.
this, it was like watching a movie and I would walk under the stars and dictate into my microphone everything that I was seeing. And so like because I'd wake up at like 4:30 a.m. and just walk under the stars because it's my favorite time to walk there
Mhm.
because it's so quiet.
Mhm.
But it literally was just me dictating my phone. And then, from there, I think if you have a strong enough why, you can overcome any how, right? And so my why was strong enough. Like I knew that this pilgrimage changed me and I wanted to change other people. So that's why I feel like it's my calling to get out there and sell this book, and also, I guess now to help other authors as they're coming through.
hmm And I think one of the things that you teach, maybe just indirectly, is that anyone can do this. I mean,
Oh,
you
absolutely.
make like success seem very attainable because you create like a very easy method to follow. And I think that's another form of encouragement because, like, I think marketing and putting yourself out there just feels so daunting to some people. Like thinking about conferences, I work with debut authors who are really introverted and they're like, oh, heck no, I'm not going to go to a conference and get out there and talk to readers. And I think you give them ways that they can kind of like embrace their fear, but also make those deep connections that can capitalize for them, like what happened for you at that
Mhm.
conference too. You make it all very attainable.
Absolutely. And, I want to speak into that a little bit more. One of my proudest moments recently, so we recently switched models to a publishing club because I'm always thinking about like ways to like make the publishing process better. So we have a cohort of people going through at a time. And one of the people going through, her name is Maddie. She's highly autistic. She was nonverbal when she was a child. And she, felt this calling from God to write this book. And she got in contact with me about half year ago, and at the time she couldn't afford like what we were offering, and so what she did is she actually started fundraising. So she would make like knitted goods and sell them at like different fairs, craft fairs, and things like that. And she went through, and that's also one of the reasons why I went to the publishing club. I want to make it more cost effective for everybody to publish at, like because we can do whatever. Yeah, doesn't matter. But anyways, so she came through, she went through the process. She learned how to upload her books to Amazon. She went through, she just launched. She became Amazon #1 new release in 3 categories and #1 bestseller in 2 categories when she launched. And currently she has about 28 reviews after about a week and a half of launching her book.
That's awesome.
And this is just like I'm so proud of her. But like other people told her she couldn't do it.
hmm
And she went through, and her book is changing the way that people look at autistic people.
Wow.
She's had people from her church that didn't know that she was autistic, and they read her book and they sent her apologies. They thought that she just, was whatever. I don't know what they thought, but like they have sent her apologies and recommended to other people and say, hey, I didn't know this about autistic people, but this book really helped open my eyes. And this is somebody who was nonverbal autistic when she was a child. So
That's amazing.
anybody can write a book. You just have to, there's another saying that says, not the how, but the who. So, for me, like I wrote my book, but then it took me like 3 years to edit it because I had to learn everything about grammar because I'd never taught that in school because, I was in the special education classes. Like I didn't learn anything. And so like I had to get help from many beta readers, many editors, everything I was going through. And so, it's like publishing a book is a team sport, and you know this very well. Like you have your team in place, and it's really a team sport. But you can do it if you have the right team around you supporting you.
Wow, what a story. And what a platform Maddie has created for herself. And you created a framework where she could get her voice heard. And I think that's one of the most important things, but also something that can be really scary.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah.
I want to hear about the code. This is very personal to you, but I mean, is there anything that you can share with us about the code without like a spoiler for your book? Anything that you can share?
Yeah, I mean, like I said, I just kept seeing these things, and I'm like, oh, that shouldn't be in a church, or oh, like what is this thing? And so there's just like all these things just kept popping up that went in there, and the code is a little embellished, obviously, coming in there. That's where the fantasy comes into it, but
hmm
there's more to the Templars than just secret treasure and stuff like that. They were, some people think that the secrets that they found in the Holy Land were actually, like spiritual secrets, like metaphysical and spiritual secrets or ancient knowledge and things like that. And you will see that like carved into the stone out there. Like in front of one of the places, there's actually like alchemists carved in there, and then the alchemic stars that go into it, which means different things. And then, there's like um inside there's like mason marks, right? that are on the stones, which dictate which quarry the stones go to. But within that, there are like letters from an old Templar coding system that
Mm,
are in there too, which I have the Templar coding system in the book. So in the
mm,
book, I'm such a nerd. The letter J didn't exist before the 1600s, so all my codes are based off of the 25 letter alphabet
mhm.
instead of 26. But I have a legit code from the Templars from the whenever's, like 1200s, 1100s. But it's so cool. Sorry, I want to find it really quickly so I can show you.
Yeah, I want to see it.
Um, I don't want to give away too much. So like this, right?
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Like those are all from one Templar coding system. That was a legit coding system from the Templars, and you will find these mixed in with the Mason's marks
Mm,
as you're going through there.
mm, mm. Some of this is a little familiar to me because I'm a Curse of Oak Island geek. So
Oh, sweet. Yeah.
I've watched that show for so long. Oh my goodness. Yeah. Well, that's I I want to hear about the path now that you've shared a little bit about the code. For someone who doesn't know anything about this, what are the logistics of that? I mean, how long is it? Where do you pick it up? I mean,
So traditionally, you there's a lot of different paths. So the symbol for the Camino de Santiago is the scallop shell. And the
uh-huh,
reason that's the symbol is because it's all the different paths going across Europe to
uh-huh,
meet at one spot, which is Santiago de Compostela, which you can see back there in the back. So
uh-huh.
that's Santiago de Compostela.
Okay.
And when you're through there, I mean, you can walk all the way from Jerusalem there. Like it's incredible. Literally stretches all the way across like Europe, Jerusalem, like everywhere to reach Santiago de Compostela. And traditionally, though, nowadays, like most people walk what's called the French route, which is where the book takes place. It takes place on the French route. And you
Hmm.
start in Saint-Jean-Pied-de-Port, which is on the border with France, and you end in Santiago de Compostela. And that's about 500 miles when you're going through there. And just a little further, about 3 days walk later, you get to Finisterre, which was considered at one time the end of the earth. So Finisterre, like the finish of the earth,
Hmm.
essentially. And it's actually one of the places that St. James was said to have preached because there was the cult of the dying sun that was there. And so he went and preached and converted people to Christianity, like as he was going through there. So there's all these just great legends and lore as you're coming through. And here I even got a me medieval map
I
in
know
there.
I love the map. I love any maps and books, but I love that one. Did you draw that yourself or do you have an artist that you work with?
No, it's well, I had an artist hand paint my covers, but the map actually comes from here's a wider view of this inside the second book. You can kind of see all of it. I took a photograph of that. It's a medieval map from Spain. So I
Hmm.
was inside a monastery and there was a medieval map on display, and that was it.
Hmm.
And so like it's a legit medieval map of the Camino de Santiago.
Wow.
It's just absolutely incredible.
So this book would appeal to well, why rather than me summarizing it, why don't you tell us who's your ideal reader for this book, and then can you take us through just the basic synopsis of the main character and what happens to her?
Absolutely. So, pretty much what happens. So, I originally wrote it for, people in their 30s, 40s, like, kind of like that age range, like people who'd read Paulo Coelho, people who'd read like The Alchemist, like people who'd read Dan Brown, people who'd read The Lord of the Rings. That was kind of like my wheelhouse that I was working, right? Like you.
Mhm.
And so, pretty much that's what I started with. But as I've been selling at festivals, I have readers as young as like 12 years old come and read them, like
Mhm.
11 years old, which I never expected because that wasn't who I wanted to target at first.
Hmm.
But get this, one of the young ladies, she got the books on Friday. Her dad was a vendor at one of the festivals. He paints dragons, he's pretty cool.
Hmm.
So she got the books on Friday. She had read through my entire trilogy by Sunday and proceeded to sit and talk with me about the trilogy for about an hour and a half and like giving me her whole point of view on the whole thing. And I didn't realize like the things that she was seeing in there. I wish I would have learned these lessons when I was 11 or 12 years old that are inside this book. I
Oh.
wish I would have had the toolkit in there
Hmm.
that that this book provides. And
Hmm.
just to think like this 12-year-old, she's dreaming now about this place called Santiago de Compostela, which is a fantasy world that you
Hmm.
could really go to today. And then to get to the basic story of the book, um, it's about a secret code of the Knights Templar on the Camino. And the lead protagonist is Princess Isabella of France. And geopolitically at the time, her father, King Philip, is deeply indebted to the Templars, and he's actually plotting with the Pope to kind of round them up and whatever, right? And so this is all like the historical context. And Princess Isabel was a real princess. She's one of the coolest princesses in history. She
Mm,
actually took over England by herself at one point in time,
mm,
which is kind of crazy. But in my book, she has a choice, right? Uh, her father has sent her to the Camino to look for the secret treasure of the Templars, and the treasure that they got from the Land, this holy treasure, right? And she's doing this because she's supposed to marry King Edward or Prince Edward of England, but she
mhm.
doesn't want to get married. None of the princesses ever want to get married. I don't blame
Right.
them,
That's
right?
right.
And so her only way of freedom is to go to the Camino de Santiago to kind of find this treasure. Plus, she's like uber smart and like is the one that he can rely on essentially going through.
Mm,
However, when she gets to the first destination, which is the Arc of San Antone, which is well, okay, so it's just past here. So that is Casa Jerez, which is just a little bit past. This is actually where I got inspired to write the book,
mm.
was at this place here. And there's a castle up on the hill and the whole
Love
bit.
that cover.
Thank you, thank you. Hand painted. Um, so anyway, so she gets there, and then she's unexpectedly reunited with ATN, who at one point in time they had fallen in love when they were younger, and her father had like sentenced him to death. So she thought he was dead, but all of a sudden here he is in the flesh, and he's there, right? So Isabella doesn't know how she's going to infiltrate the Templars. Oh, before she meets ATN, she's attacked by the Moors. And the Templars' duty was to protect pilgrims, right? And so she's there and she gets to the Templar commandery, and the Templars are now protecting them. And before that, she didn't know how she'd infiltrate the Templars. But now she finds that she has ATN there. Plus, the Templars are going to have to escort her going forward. So
Mm,
that's kind of like her in going into it.
mm-hmm.
Uh,
Mm-hmm.
and
Love it.
so as they go, they they're learning all these great lessons as they're coming. They meet these great characters, and everybody who is not historic in the book is based off of somebody that I actually walked with on
Mm,
my Camino, which is super fun. So it's
mm.
my way of sharing my friends with everybody.
Yeah.
And then, yeah, so as they go, they have to pretty much unlock the seven doors. So the secret code is behind the seven doors, or the treasure is behind the seven doors. They have to figure out the code to find the seven doors and unlock them, essentially. However, behind each door is either a treasure or a trial.
Mm-hmm.
And so
Mm-hmm.
there's seven trials they have to overcome.
Mm,
And the first one, as they're going, they're actually being pursued by these immortal shadows. And
mm,
so as the Moors are chasing them and they're trying to figure out this code, there's this overarching shadow, like shadows, assassins that are kind of following them. And anyways,
ring
how
wraith.
they overcome them is pretty cool.
I think of ring wraiths when you're
That's
like,
exactly what they're like. They're exactly like ring wraiths,
uh-huh.
except a little different. And I won't give away too much with them, but
Wow.
um, you,
There's there's everything in there. There's
yeah,
so and as you're talking about it, two things come to mind. I can totally understand why a 12-year-old girl would just be swept up
yeah,
in that. I can totally picture being 12 years old and just like wanting to like that's my, the Lion, the Witch, and the Wardrobe, just completely dive in. But something also reminds me very much of some of the themes of gaming, like the seven doors and the seven challenges and kind
right.
of like a dark force looming over you. And I think those are probably very relevant to younger audiences. So I mean, you've really got everything in there.
And
Um,
it's kind of cool. I love that you mentioned gaming because at a lot of festivals, they'll say, "Oh, Templars, do you play Assassin's Creed?" And I was like, I don't play it, but I have actually Assassins in here too. So I have the Templars and the Assassins and everything.
mhm, mhm.
Can I share something with you really quickly? Would that be all right?
Yes.
So let me just share my screen really quickly. So I am currently, you get the first ones to see this. I'm currently working on a guidebook to the Templars on the Camino.
Ooh.
So I'm taking all the research and I've made a guidebook
Mm-hmm.
coming through here. So I'm actually creating my own Camino route that
Wow.
combines these different Caminos together to make what I'm calling the Templars Camino because it
Mm-hmm.
has the most interesting Templar sites. And I'm dividing it up by the kingdoms of Spain as you go. And here this is kind of cool. So this is your credential. When you walk the pilgrimage, you get these what's called a credential, and it's your pilgrim's passport. But that actually goes back to the Templars' time because when you went to take a pilgrimage back in the medieval time, you go to your local Templar commandery, you'd give them your money, and they'd give you a credential, which was a coded piece of paper,
Mm-hmm.
and you would take it with you and take out deposits at different Templar commanderies, which is pretty cool. But just look at the scenery. Like, I mean,
Oh,
absolutely beautiful.
beautiful.
Then here, this is actually where the Holy Grail was stored at one point in time,
Hmm.
coming into it. So there's all these great legends coming there. I don't have time to go into them, but you have all these just amazing things in places.
Wow.
There's sacred geometry. Wherever you find the Templars, you find sacred geometry. This was a really cool place. This is like a ruined castle,
Mm-hmm.
and you get to sleep in the ruins of the city.
Mm-hmm.
Like, so fun. More Templar stuff. And here you have the kingdoms. You have the kingdom of Aragon, Navarra, Castile, Leon, Galicia, and Portugal as you're coming.
Mm-hmm.
And then I want to get back onto our. Then this is interesting too. Like there's these Templar churches along the way that
Mm-hmm.
are octagonal, which they mimic the Templar commandery that was on top of Solomon's temple in the Holy Land,
Mm-hmm.
which was also known as the Dome of the Rock as well. So the Dome of the Rock used to be the Templar commandery up there. So it was a mosque, became the Templar commandery. Now it's a mosque again. But
Wow.
here, on the seal. Then there's so much to go into here, but like this is just some of this. You have the sign of the Tau. And then here, these are the alchemists that are on there. Here's the alchemic star.
So history buffs would just be in absolute heaven.
Oh yeah, yeah, they would be in absolute heaven with all of this. And actually, I'm just sharing this with you today because I just have finished my first draft
Oh,
or my
wonderful.
first edit. Like it's going to the other editors. We're putting it out pretty soon here, so I'm super stoked about that.
What is
That
this
this
going to be called?
this is going to be called the Templar's Camino,
Okay.
A guidebook to the Knights Templar on the Camino.
Okay. That's exciting. We have 10 minutes left. I would like to get to a couple more questions if we can.
Sure.
Um, what do you think most authors don't understand about marketing? In all the work that you do and all of the authors that you work with at different stages in their careers, is there any kind of commonality among all of them that like really shines through for you?
Yeah, I mean, well, number one thing I think is just you have to come to the realization if you put your book up there without either feeding it with ads or social media, it's not going to do anything. You could have the best book in the world, but if you don't promote it, nothing's going to happen. And a lot of us have the dream of, oh, I just want to put my book up there and it's just going to sell millions of copies and go through, and all I have to do is get it up there. But no, that's just the first step.
Mm, mm-hmm.
So there's what you dream of, and then there's like what reality is, or like expectations meets what's there. And even, with big publishing companies, still they're expecting the authors to promote their own books now.
Oh,
So,
totally.
and so I have like, big authors coming to us sometimes asking us to help build their audience and other things, um,
Mm-hmm.
and whatnot. But like you have to market your book. The number second thing would be your cover is the most important thing.
Mm-hmm.
And so you have to make sure your cover is to market and to trend. And if it's not, you should redo your cover
Mm-hmm.
because you could spend a ton of money getting somebody to your sales page. But if they get there and your cover doesn't draw them in or your description, then they're not going to buy your book, no
Mm-hmm.
matter how good it is, no matter. And then you've just wasted a whole bunch of money getting people to your page.
Right.
But they're not buying. So it's
Mm-hmm.
it's really understanding the market right from even when you're starting to begin your book. Know
Mm-hmm.
who you're writing your book for.
Whether someone has an aspiration to traditionally publish or to self-publish, what advice would you give a novice writer today in 2025? Someone who feels like they have a book in them but isn't quite sure what to do next. What would you tell them?
Yeah, so if you have a book inside you and you don't know to Dex, I always say commitment will set you free. And so you have to make the commitment to become a writer, which means you have to make a commitment to sit down and either choose a word count or a time count, like an hour, 2 hours, that you are just going to sit and work on your book. It is now your new job because the book is not going to write itself. The other thing I like to tell writers too with that is it doesn't have to be perfect. As the author, it's your job just to get the book done.
Mm-hmm.
Your editors and everybody else help make it perfect
Mm,
when you're going through. And a lot of authors get stuck in the, perfectionist of your book. No, 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 no. You're just misunderstanding your job. Your job is to get that book outside of you,
mm,
and then you can polish it.
mm. Where can viewers find your books?
Sure. Yeah, we're on Amazon. We're on, Barnes and Nobles. Like we're everywhere pretty much. Also, I have website, which is brianjohnskillen.com, where you can go through that. And then we also run funnels too. And maybe I'll give you a link to one of our funnels where people can get a discount on books.
Okay.
Kind of nice that you can put in the show notes. So I'll go ahead and get you one of those too.
Yeah, I would be happy to do that. And then also can is Publishing Hackers a website that people can go to
Yeah,
connect with you?
people can go to Publishing Hackers website, or what's best is on social media. Like really just find me on Facebook.
Mhm.
And find our company on Facebook. I need to redo our Publishing Hackers website because everything's changed
Mhm.
as
Mhm.
as we've been going through. It's just so interesting. Companies grow and they change, and just
Yeah.
like they grow and they change.
Abs
So
Absolutely. Yeah. I mean, like you've accomplished so much since the last time you were on this series, and it's just been so exciting as your friend and also your marketing client to just see how like you've just been skyrocketing. So it's such a pleasure, Brian. Thank you so much for joining today.
yeah, thank you for having me on. It's been an absolute pleasure, and I just love your books. I love what you're doing, and always here to support you.
Thank you so much. And for viewers, have fun reading A Way Through a Field of Stars by Brian Skillen, and we will see you next time. There it is. All right. Beautiful cover. Thank you.
You're welcome. Thank you.